I took a stroll downtown this evening when I heard music echo through the night. So I started running so I wouldn't be too late. In the neon light, what the music could reveal through the night.
Welcome everyone to Coaching in Session. My name is Michael Reardon and I'll be your mindset coach today. And today we're going to be talking about recent news, the latest news, breaking news, all of that stuff that we have to be aware about, but we don't necessarily want to be entrenched in, because if we do that, then we're going to be endowed with negativity. So let's get into that news, and it's going to be a doozy today because we are finding out some things that I have said in the past and they're coming true. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and to share this video and or audio. Now, I had said some time ago, I believe it was the coming collapse, or this is what you need to know. This was probably in December, maybe January. Things are moving along nicely in the scheme of cause and effect, or what happens when you have a weak leader, what happens when you have people who are without, what happens when you have a supply chain breakdown. This is all cause and effect, people. I will say this, not everyone has the ability to look at cause and effect or look at before and after. So if someone, for example, says, hey, if you keep poking this lion is going to bite your finger. Some people might say, well, that's not true. I see people touching lions all the time and poking them and they don't do anything. So this person is operating under their own belief, which is fine, right? But then they're going to have their own experience soon when the lion bites off their hand. Now, we are living in that time where people are thinking the lions are just docile and sweet and cuddly, like they're all circusly trained and obedient. But a wild animal is a wild animal, and you can't take the human spirit and try to crush it without some type of backlash. So it's not that I'm going to be the one doing the backlash. It's not that you're going to be doing the one with the backlash. It's just that people are going to get to the point where they say, you know what? It's time to act. And the acts that they do are not going to be positive acts. Because if we look at recent news today, we're going to see that the actions that are happening are not necessarily good. So let's get in a little bit of that news, and then we're just going to talk about the current state of everything. So as always, I like to start off with one of the bigger news brands, whether it be BBC News, CNN, ABC, Fox News, which I have to get up there. I'm going to be looking at what the world is seeing, right? Because if I'm just going to look at what the world is seeing, then I can put 1 and 2 together, right? Because if I'm not putting 1 and 2 together, then I'm going to be at a disadvantage when I'm trying to help people. Because when someone comes to me and they're from, let's say, New York, right now there's a big incident in New York, they might be in a different place. They might be in a different state of mind. I need to know that. And it's not that I know every bit of local news. It's just that I make sure I understand where their mindset is. So here we have a little bit of news. Ukraine and Russia, still big news, right? Where the peace conflict or the peace resolution talk has come to a dead end. Surprise, surprise. I could have told you that months ago that there was going to be no peace talk that was going to be easily met. No, that's not going to happen because Russia wouldn't have simply invaded. Russia is just not going to simply say, oh, you want peace? Okay, not a problem. Just don't join NATO. We'll be okay, right? No, because then that's going to leave room for backstabbing, and Russia doesn't want that. Of course, not going to be a good situation for Ukraine. Not going to be a good situation for Russia, for the world. I mean, everyone's feeling this, right? Supply chains are breaking down. There's not much to go around, but there still is things to go around. So I don't want people to get into a panic yet where, oh my goodness, I don't have something in my life. Because we still can get things. They are still stocking the shelves to the best of their abilities, but it's not the same. And all of this right here, this war, this supply chain breakdown, guess what happened? We are just getting more stressed, more fear. And all that is leading to negativity in our minds. looking at InfoWars, just going over here and talking about some of their news. And then we're going to get into the big news in a couple of minutes, where we're talking about how more lockdowns are coming. And I believe Dr. Fauci had already came out and he said that there's going to be a new variant, and this one is going to be even more deadly. And this is just a safety net for them. And the reason why this is a safety net, and you might not understand what a safety net is, but I'm going to explain that. Mainstream media needs to have something to talk about. If they don't have anything to talk about, they don't have views. And if they don't have views, they don't have money. And you know what mainstream media likes is money. They'll sell out the American people for $1. As sad as that is, we have to understand, hey, that's what they do. So I'm not against them. I just understand them, right? Now, I don't want to be affiliated with them, but at the same time, we need to know our enemy. So they're basically winding up another wave or variant just in case nothing happens with Russia or World War III. Because right now there's two scenarios that are going to happen. World War III or another strain of the variant. And we don't know what's going to happen until it happens. Not saying that either are good, but one is actually better for the economy, right? So war is going to be good for the economy. We do need a boost in our economy, but at the same time, we don't want war because war is nasty, is not good, it's negative. So if we can avoid war, that would be a better thing. That is what we want to avoid, but at the same time, if we don't avoid it, it's a good thing. Now, they need to keep us in control, so that's why they're saying emergency Tuesday broadcast right here. They're talking about more lockdowns are coming to America. The American people are done with lockdowns. Just FYI, just for people who think that, okay, this news is so important, right? No, people are done with being locked in their homes. People want to go out, they'll go out. They'll wear the mask, they'll get their boosters or 17 boosters, however many they need. They'll take a PCR test before they leave the house and when they come back home, just to feel safe. That's fine, right? Whoever does that, that's fine. That's them. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing either. They have that right as people. If they want to go out and wear masks, they can go out and wear masks. There's still people in the gym who wear masks. I don't run up to them and saying, hey, why are you wearing a mask? They don't help you. You know, they have an N95 mask. I might say, good job, good on you. But I'm not going to make it clairvoyant for someone to say, well, I have a mask on, I'm being a hero. No, you're not. You're being a fool. I understand there's going to be some places, policies that require you to wear a mask. If you're in a hospital, for an example, yeah, of course, the health workers are still going to be wearing masks because they might be dealing with people who are going to be coming in and they might have some type of sickness or illness. So they're protecting themselves, right? Same thing, police wear body armor. They're protecting themselves. It's not that they need it. It's just that they stay protected. And an officer can go all their whole entire duty career, have to use their firearm, ever get shot at. It's just a crapshoot. So we just have to understand that just because someone is wearing a mask or getting sick, it doesn't necessarily mean that what they're doing is wrong. Maybe wrong place, wrong time, right place, right time. Who knows, right? But what we do know is that American people, they're done with the lockdowns. Most of them are done wearing masks. Not going to happen for many people. Even myself, when it comes to PCR tests and wearing masks, I am a firm believer in not doing it. Because, yeah, if I go somewhere and I have to wear a mask, okay, cool, get it done. But I should have to really be there. I'm not going to just go someplace that I have to wear a mask for my pleasure, right? So, for example, let's say I was going to Starbucks and I wanted to sit down and get a nice cappuccino. So I sit down and get a nice cappuccino and they're like, oh, you have to have a mask on while you're drinking that cappuccino, sir. Well, guess what? I'm not going to be in the Starbucks. All right, that's simple. I'm not going to support Starbucks ever again. That's simple. It's just what I'm going to do. Many companies are going to, of course, have their affiliates, right? Their people, their sheep that are going to be there along with them, supporting them. And then there's going to be people who write them off for their entire life. I'm sure these lockdowns might turn into just PCR tests more than anything. So for example, if you want to go into a grocery store, in order to go into the grocery store, you have to take a PCR test, something along those lines. But that's just a waste of tests. That's just a waste of testing. You don't need a test to tell you that you're healthy. I mean, I know early on there were so many false positives coming out where I guess it was just maybe many people didn't know how to use the PCR test or how to administer them. So that was some of the problems with that. But the PCR test wasn't even created to be something that was going to identify our current quarantine illness, right? The C word. So either way, not going too deep into this, but coming American lockdowns, probably not going to happen. Yeah, it's happening over there, but that's communism. Here we have freedom, we have our constitutional rights. Americans are done being locked down and they're done following orders. And then we get into the big news. The big news is going to be on CNN, ABC, Fox News, because if you don't notice anything from these stations, CNN, ABC, Fox News, they love negativity. Now, ABC does a better job than other networks on bringing some positive because ABC is like a family type of network. CNN and Fox, of course, they want the most views. Not saying it's a bad thing, right? Because we understand they're a business, they have to make money, they have to keep the lights on, right? I'm not against them. But at the same time, you don't have to be with them. I'm just understanding where they're coming from. So here we have some news that came out where there's a manhunt underway in New York, of all places, right? Doesn't New York have some of the strictest restrictions on firearms? Yes, but guess what? There's an issue. Same thing in Connecticut when it happened with Sandy Hook. They have restrictions on many of the firearms, what you can do, what you can't do, but yet there's still an incident. Maybe restrictions aren't good because when you restrict people, what do? Either they take advantage of those restrictions or they get upset. And here we have a clear understanding of someone getting upset. So here we have an incident. Someone opens fire. I think 10 people get hurt, maybe more. And they're blaming high capacity magazines. So getting into high capacity magazines, they believe that anything over 10 rounds is high capacity magazines. Okay, sure. Now, yeah, you could do a lot of damage with high capacity magazines because you don't have to reload and there's not going to be much user error. But at the same time, if you're trained, you don't necessarily need a high capacity magazine in order to do damage. After Sandy Hook, I remember they did a ban on anything over 10 rounds in Connecticut. You couldn't have a 10 round magazine in Connecticut. So at the time, I think I was only carrying maybe one extra mag or something like that. And it had like 13 rounds in there. So of course I couldn't carry 13 rounds anymore because of the new legislation that came out for firearms and the amount of rounds you can have in your firearm at any given time. It was just 10, and that included one in the chamber. Instead of me carrying around one magazine, 13 rounds, and then I had 13 in the firearm, I said, you know what? I'm just going to carry 3 mags now. So I essentially had more firepower than I did before the restrictions. The restrictions don't help. Restrictions don't make people say, well, I can only have 10, so it's going to be less damage. Because their argument on the fact that someone has to reload is going to save some lives. The reason why these lives were saved is because people say the gun got jammed. And this person probably doesn't have much firearm knowledge. So the gun gets jammed and the person says, oh, I better figure my life out and let me boogie. Same thing here. We have 3 extended round magazines. Extended rounds. Oh, wow, big deal. Now they're going to be pushing in New York for extended magazine bans. Maybe they're going to do something similar to California. And that's not going to be a good thing, right? Maybe for them, because now people have less firepower. What do you think is going to happen when people have less firepower? It's going to be easier for them to be controlled because they can't fight back as efficiently. Because if you're fighting someone who has 30 round mags, 50 round mags, 100 round drums, guess what? And you have a 10 round mag or a 2-barrel shotgun, is what Joe Biden likes to say. You can have a 2-barrel shotgun and you could be perfectly protected. Guess what happens? Now we are just going to be less equipped to fight back our oppressors. The Second Amendment is not so much for our safety, it's for making sure a tyrannical government doesn't come in and take over our rights. That's why it's there. It wasn't there to say, well, we need to make sure we don't get robbed on the road while we're going home. Maybe a little bit, but minuscule. I'm sure that's not what they were thinking, the founding fathers. What they were looking for is making sure that a tyrannical government doesn't get in control. Now, Same thing here with Fox News, hunting for clues. They're just trying to figure out where this person is. Now, guess what? New York, they're up in a frenzy. Everyone's panicking. Everyone doesn't know what to do. Not a problem though, right? Because that's news. So all in all though, the news is just going to be negative. It's just going to keep on pushing you down a rabbit hole. And it's not a place to be because we have other things to worry about. And we're going to get into those right now. The year is 2022. We're going to have a slow crash, right? This is not going to be like the Great Depression. It's not going to be like 2008 housing market crash with the bubble. It's going to be something even worse. It's going to be stagflation. Now, stagflation is another fancy term that they created or made up, saying that it's going to be a long-term inflation, right? So what does that mean, right? Stagflation. It just means that we're going to be in a prolonged period of higher cost. And that higher cost is just going to mean your food is going to cost more, your gas is probably going to cost more, everything's going to cost more. And it's because the government was printing out a bunch of money, there's nothing to back it, or supply chain breakdown. There's so many factors that are going to be leading up to the impending collapse because they can't change the interest rates. And many people are not buying home because they're uncertain. And I will say that right now is still not a terrible time to buy a home. Of course, it was a better time 4 years ago. But if you're going to buy a home and you're going to stay in your home for the next 30 years, then it's perfectly fine to buy a home because the bubble is not going to collapse or pop until 2024. Where do I get these numbers, right? Do I know mind control? Can I read into the future? No, it's just we are looking at the most statistically probable time when this is going to happen. Because when the midterm elections come, they're probably not going to be able to create an opportunity for them to retain the House majority. So that means they're going to lose the House. So that means Democrats are going to be out. More Republicans are going to be in. It's going to be harder for Biden to push any agenda. Now, with that being said, yes, they could collapse the market there and saying, well, the reason why the market's collapsing is because we don't have any control. That was my initial thought. But then I said, they're going to hit us with a double whammy, a two-prong attack. Because if they're just going to tell us, okay, well, it's because of them, we're not going to vote for them in 2 years when things start to get better. No, we need something to go really bad and to make sure that things don't keep going this way. Because if we win the House and nothing bad happens, guess what's going to happen? We're going to stay in power for the next 16 years, something like that. That's could be Republicans. Not saying that a Democrat leader can't come about, but what I am saying is that the Democrats don't have anyone worth being a leader. Look at Biden, look at Kamala Harris, look at Nancy Pelosi. They're not leaders. And I have this picture, and this picture is really powerful because it talks about Alexander the Great. Of course, you know anything about Constantinople, Alexander, the people who conquered most of the Eastern world. Alexander the Great, regardless if you want to do some history on him, he is a conqueror. He says, I'm not afraid of an army of lions led by sheep. I'm afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion. And this is mindset 101. Because I can take a follower, I can take a sheep and make them a fighter. I can make them a lion. But I can't have an army of lions led by a sheep be something powerful because the sheep is the leader, right? And the leader is going to say, hey guys, you know what? We should just be calm. We should just be still. We shouldn't do anything. And the lions are like, yeah, that sounds good, right? Like, we don't want to do anything. We'll follow you, leader, right? But when you have a leader who's going to be like, we're going to take over, we're going to rise, we're going to figure this out, and then we do it, guess what happens? Those sheep becomes lions. I believe there was a movie, it's not Braveheart, but it's similar to that. It was like a Viking movie or something like that, or a show. And in the movie, there was a line, something along these lines was, rise and rise again until sheep become lions, or sheep become wolves, something along those lines. The sheep, the people who follow, are going to eventually become lions with the right leader. Now, with the wrong leader, do you think people are going to stay sheep? No. People are going to gravitate away from these people, and they're going to say, you know what, I don't want to be part of this agenda anymore, of this organization anymore. That's why the young people, AOC was out the other week, I believe, saying young people are the problem right now because they're leaving the Democratic Party. Because young people are not getting anything. They're getting the bad end of the deal. They were promised so many things and they got nothing. So now they're left with scraps because they put some faith in the government. And now they're going to have to go through this crisis period of a coming collapse, of hardship, of turmoil, and they want it easy because their life has been nothing but easy until now. So now these times are going to allow them to be stronger. The next generation is going to be stronger than our current generation. So regardless of which generation is going to be better, if it was our generation, baby boomers, millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, that doesn't matter anymore, because we don't necessarily need a bunch of sheep in order for us to feel like, oh, we're the best generation, right? We don't need a bunch of lions to feel like we are the best generation, right? Because that doesn't help us. Similar to how this picture says, I am not afraid of an army of lions led by sheep. It doesn't necessarily matter what your army consists of. You can have the mightiest warriors with the wrong leader. You should not be afraid. But if you have the right leader, then you should be afraid. And right now we have the wrong leader. We have a leader we should not be afraid of. We have a leader who can't lead. We have a leader who's going to lead us to our destruction if we allow him to. So all the sheep and all the lions that are following him are going to come to a realization in the near future. He wasn't meant to be a leader, and that's why he's not going to be president for long. He's going to be getting out of office within the year. Not this year, probably the beginning of next year. And someone's going to take over. Kamala Harris should be the person coming in. They're not going to allow that. She can't handle it. So Pelosi might come in. But that's not going to happen either, because Pelosi is not running again for Speaker of the House. So who's going to be Speaker of the House come midterms? That's going to be the next president. Understand that. So the Speaker of the House is going to be the next president, and that person is going to be the new leader, right? And either they're going to be the scapegoat or they're going to be the next leader, and they're going to keep on doing what they're doing. And of course, if they weren't a president already, they're going to finish up this term, and then they're still going to get their 2 terms. That's if they weren't a president already. So for example, if Trump comes in as Speaker of the House, he's there for 2 years, he can still come in and be president for 4 more years. So in all, he's going to get 10 years of being president. That's just a little bit of math for anyone who's having some difficulty with that. But we're living in interesting times because there's so much going on. And I said on the Alex Jones show, on InfoWars, I said that we have a year and a half before things topple. And this is going to be after midterm. So it's going to be January, February of 2023 when things get dicey. 9 months later, we're going to see some type of growth, some type of progress. Things are like getting good. And all of a sudden, things go wrong again. Housing market crash. Everything crashes. So we need to be ready for that, right? How to get ready for the impending collapse or impending doom. You need to train your mindset. Because if you have a weak mindset, if you don't have a strong mindset, you're not going to get past anything. What do you think happened in the Great Depression? People were jumping off buildings when they found out they lost everything. Now, if you lose everything, what do? Do you pick up your tools and you start building again? Or do you say, you know what, F this, I'm done? As we can see in New York, they're done. People are done. People are going to be coming out in droves. So if you think this is the last incident of an active shooter, think again. Because it's going to be rampant coming in the next year. Because people are getting tired. People are getting fed up. This is mindset. So what do we do in order to stop it? We need to stop the agenda. We need to stop the way people are currently thinking. And right now, everyone thinks that someone's going to save them. They're not taking the problem that they have and figuring out a solution. They're hoping someone else figures it out for them. And as long as that happens, we're going to have an issue. Yeah, you can become a lion. Yeah, you can become a leader. Yeah, you can create massive amount of wealth and have great results in your life. But what does that mean if the world's on fire? because we can change one mindset at a time. We can change hundreds, maybe millions of mindsets at a time, but that is still not enough. We can't stop the glass from being tipped over. And when the typhoon comes out, many people are going to be swept up in the current because they weren't ready to swim. So are you ready to swim, and are you ready to do your best in these next couple of months or years in order to make sure that you're in the best place possible? This is something you have to think about and something you have to prepare for, because if you don't, you're the person to blame. It's not the government. It's not the person next to you. It's you. You are the person responsible for you. So take responsibility, show up every day, and make sure you figure out what you need to do in order to get a better life. Because if you're not doing what you need to do today, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow has something in store and you're not ready for it. My name is Michael Reardon. I'm a mindset coach here in Austin, Texas. If you have any questions, of course, email me, coachinginsession@gmail.com. I will also be available for coaching, revenconcepts.com. I will see everyone next week for Coaching in Session. Until then, everyone take care.